morning. Welcome to the dial once again. And of course, I will not be doing this alone. I have my delectable co-anchor with me in the person of Victoria Johnson. Good morning, Victoria.
A very beautiful morning to you, Rita. How you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's more like I wasn't in the mood today, but come on, it is what it is. I have to be here.
Right.
A great morning greetings to you. Akwaba Mighty welcome you officially to the newspaper review.
We start off right away with the Vanguard newspaper this morning. In the very first headline, he says 83 Nigerians return from South Africa. Well, congratulations to these South Africans. Nigerians turned South Africans, I beg your pardon, who have returned from South Africa amid the xenophobic attacks. We also say kudos to the federal government, Nigeria. They have actually done noble, and we really hope that they have more plans to evacuate our citizens from South Africa. We do not want to record more deaths and more losses of property at this point in time. But you want to find the full detail of that story, you can see that on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper. The masthead here says allocations cannot guarantee prosperity for states. This is coming from Taiwo Oyedele this morning. Taiwo Oyedele happens to be the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Now, he has said that federal allocations alone, that is, money that federal government will give to state governments alone, cannot guarantee that these states will become very prosperous, they'll become very progressive, they'll become very big. He is saying that these states should be able to develop sustainable sources of revenue that will help them drive economic growth, just so that the money coming from the federal government will just be an addition. And then we will see even greater growth to the point of productivity and subsequently prosperity. That is a very great advice this morning. I mean, every state should have something that drives home internally generated revenue. I know that the money from the federal government comes, okay, but imagine having a separate purse. Imagine having an impress, okay, where you can easily go and take money from to solve your immediate problems without waiting for the federal government to send money to you. That is what Taiwo Yedele is saying today. And it is not just the state that it is going to improve. It is also going to improve the country, because if other sectors, if other levels of government are working, I mean, it's going to be for the joint good, the proper good of the nation in itself. Well, you can go right ahead and check the detail of that story on page 2 of the Vanguard newspaper, as it is the masthead this morning. We move over to latest news. Nelfund applauds Tinubu for commitment to sustainable student loan financing. You know, this applause is also coming after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that all of the money that EFCC is seizing from all and sundry, okay, all this money that he has seizing, don't give it to me. Don't put it in the federal government purse. Channel it into Nelfund so that we can give more students loans, so that we can finance education for more students who cannot easily afford it. And so Nelfund is applauding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu this morning. And this has led Nigerians to ask some questions. What if the problem of this administration is in its implementation? Okay, what if it is the fact that stringent measures are not taken to see that adequately all of these laws and reforms are being implemented to the T? What if, okay, the problem is with the middlemen, the persons who work for this implementation to happen? And so all of these questions are being asked, because this is a very great reform. You can imagine how much will be sunk into Nelfund by the time EFCC is done. So why are students, or some students, still complaining that they have never benefited from this initiative before? These are necessary questions Nigerians are asking this morning based off of this headline, but you can find the full detail of this story on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. Going now now to the foreign scene. China jails Evergrande founder for life and fines firm over $2 billion. You want to know what the founder did and you want to know what the firm did. You can find the story on World page 20 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Also, there is also the dollar to naira exchange rate today. If you want to know whether the naira is floating, standing, or sinking, you can find the full detail of that story on business page 15 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Another headline here says, experts seeks reforms to unlock poultry industry's potential. Find the detail of that story on business page 15 as well of the Vanguard newspaper. And finally, this morning it says, Lagos gets 360 megawatts boost as federal government upgrades 4 substations. You can find the full detail of that story as well on business page 17 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And a breaking news, 2027, I pity Tinubu because they will say he rigged after he wins. God, I beg. This is very serious this morning. But then there is a counter conversation to that. Tinubu will lose credible 2027 elections before 4 p.m. This is coming from Baba Ahmed this morning. Well, whatever happens at the end of the day, we will be here and we will see what happens. More headlines will come your way this morning. Of course, I hand you over to the desk of my co-uncle, Victoria Johnson.
Thank you so much, Dave, Rita. I will try as much as I can to, pull out my auditory command this morning because, come on, I am just, a little bit under the weather. Sorry. But I'll try my very best to, do what I have to do. Okay. Well, I usually tell, you, my listener, on this platform, especially on the newspaper review, that you should stay informed. And then you may ask a question, why should I stay informed? Okay, it's very important for you to do so because you do not just hear news, you understand policies, you spot lies, and you protect your right and even make better choices, especially for yourself and beyond. And of course, this morning, I'm going to be taking you through stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. And the very first headline says, Cross River Governor orders aides to withdraw case against critic. And of course, the next one here says, Ogun State ex-lawmaker urges federal government to institutionalize food bank program. Another one here says, UK ex-Commonwealth champion Baptist found jailed in Morocco. And this one says, YouTube offers creators millions to keep content off Netflix. Okay, will that be possible? That's a question, Day. Well, for many more of those details, you have to go look out for the Punch newspaper this morning. I always tell you, you just take a work. I mean, these vendors are everywhere on the road. You will see them bringing these newspapers to, people driving, okay, to even pedestrians. They will just call your attention if you need one. So it's very important for you to just get them, and then you stay quite updated with what is going on in your environment. Moving on, this one says, the Hen threatens to sue White over Joshua Fury fight. Okay, another headline here from the Punch newspaper this morning says, Oshun Paul, a delegate gets certificate, unveils 50 million naira victims fund. Okay, you can imagine that. Now, you know that during the weekend election, okay, on the 15th of August in the Osun State, we're talking about the governorship election here, that a lot of persons, lost their lives, irrespective of the fact that many Nigerians were really joyous. I will say 80% of Nigerians, yes, were so exhilarated over the fact that a delegate actually won in that election. But there's something that most persons did not look out for, and that is the very lives of those persons that, had to go for that election. And then a common Nigerian who is actually at the always at a pace of looking out for his or her safety will ask a question. Is it not possible for us to always hold elections in Nigeria without a live going for it? I don't know, what you make out of this, but this is to say that the failed to come in general election is even going to be more tougher than the one we had over the weekend. So you have to protect yourself first before looking out for whoever should rule over you. It's very important. Your safety comes in first. After all, most of those persons, even when they emerge the winner, they may not even, maybe pay a compensation to your family, let alone always talking about or maybe paying reference to the fact that your life had to go for that. I mean, you don't need to sacrifice a second time, okay? Jesus paid the price, so please get wisdom there. All right, this one says here, PFOIPC ICPC uncovers multiple fake agencies as Tinubu orders forensic probe. All right, I don't want to talk about this, okay, because, I mean, come on, it is what it is, though. Please just go look out for the details of those headlines from the Punch newspaper this morning, dated the 20th of August. This one says, my replacement not because of Supreme Court verdict. Kebbi Deputy Governor says so. And the final headline here from Punch newspaper says, Oshobo gunfire. Davido says incident had nothing to do with Adeleke. Okay, you know that during the election just concluded over the weekend, a lot of things were actually erupting from the corners of Davido. He was always raising alarm, He said that he was actually doing that to protect, the elections from being rigged. He's a nephew to the re-elected governor of Osun State, Governor Adeleke. And of course, he has come out this morning to say that the incident had nothing, he said that the gunfire had nothing to do with Adeleke's election and of course victory that, took place during the weekend election. Well, I will hand over you to my colleague for more headlines from other, newspaper sources. Thank you so much for staying tuned.
Going over right now to Daily Trust newspaper. The very first headline here says, Phantom Council. The Federal Executive Council approves forensic audit of ministries, departments, and agencies. You can find the full detail of that story on page 7 of Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Questions over 15.8 trillion naira subsidy savings. You can find the full detail of that story on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper this morning, where every single use of this money has been accounted for. Who gets what and how they get everything, what they use it for. You can actually find the detail of this story on the Daily Trust newspaper. The masthead here says, mascots kickoff campaign for Tinubu in Abuja. We are pointing out this morning that a campaign team for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the All Progressives Congress, the APC's presidential candidate, in the 2027 election, began operations in Abuja yesterday. The shotgun just went off in the air and everybody just, that is quite interesting. You need to see the mascots. You need to see them. They mean business. They actually mean business. And on one of their posters, we see Tulumbu is the man to fix Nigeria. That is what one of their posters carry on it, and subsequently even more posters behind them. May the best man win in the forthcoming election, but it is a top story this morning, and you can definitely find the detail of this story on page 2 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Going now to other top stories. Gombe's Dan Azumi emerges overall winner of Quranic competition in Saudi Arabia. Whatever sector, whatever niche, Nigerians are doing Nigerians proud out there. And so, congratulations to Gombe State, congratulations to Nigeria, and congratulations to Dan Azumi this morning. FEC orders EFCC to release recovered loot to Nel Fund. Going back to the headline we read off the Vanguard newspaper this morning, just like some Nigerians are asking. Do you really think that these reforms are problematic in their implementation? More like the presidency have given an order. He has charged a particular institution of government with what to do. Do you fault the government for not actually looking deeply into it to make sure that whatever happens, there is the implementation to the later of these instructions being given? But we get to see how this headline will develop in the coming days, because it affects a lot of Nigerians and they are quite interested in seeing how it plays out. Another headline here this morning says, police arrest man over allegedly defiling a 12-year-old boy. You can find the detail of that story on page 8 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Castina community deserted as over 3,000 residents flee attacks. Does this end anytime soon? You can find the detail of that story on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And finally, Kadeco, another failure of power reforms. You can find the detail of that story on business page 15 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Of course, more headlines will come your way this morning. Like I said, we'll take you back to the desk of my co-anchor, Victoria Johnson.
Okay. Much thank you there, Rita. All right, we move straight to Daily Post Nigeria this morning. And the first headline here says, NYSC DG warns core members against political campaigns and AI misinformation. Okay, and this one also says here, Tinubu approves construction, rehabilitation of 80 roads project, full list. All right, we have another headline here that states that, all right, this one says, how Obasanjo and I recovered stolen money for Nigeria, says Atiku Abubakar. Right. I know that there are a lot of persons who love Atiku Abubakar, and of course he has so much of fans. You know, when Atiku and Obasanjo is actually having maybe a face-up or something, okay, over an issue, or perhaps what actually happened so many years ago, I see that most Nigerians are always, working in tandem and doing the part of Atiku. So if you are an Atiku fan this morning, you have to go check out what exactly he's talking about, how him and his, and the president-elect then, former President Obasanjo, actually recovered stolen funds. Okay, and then another one here says truck crushes man to death on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Oh my God, this is just so sad to hear this morning. Come on. At a time where a lot of persons in Nigeria and the world at large are actually really in so much of expectation into the embalmment, and then you're seeing some mishaps taking place. Oh no, this is just not it, okay? And we say we are just so sorry to see and to hear about this, and we just hope that the families of these victims would definitely be consoled. All right. Okay, now we move on. This one having to do with the banking sector says FCMB deepens agri-tech with AI advisory in local languages. All right, and this one says police arrest suspect over attack on Plateau community. And another headline here says NSCDC arrest free in Adamawa over alleged vandalism of 250 NNPC pipes. You can imagine that, okay? You have to go check out the full details of this from Daily Post Nigeria this morning. And this one says Nigerian in Australia denied bail over alleged $5 million disability scheme fraud. A lot of mishap is ongoing. All right, and you just have to be very careful as a person, okay, so that you do not fall a victim. All right, this one says Northern senators seek end to cycle of human killings in Plateau State. Okay. I mean, for the past few days, I've not been talking about, abduction, kidnapping, terrorism, insurgency in Nigeria and of all that. I started talking about this yesterday, and I don't feel comfortable talking about this. But you know that we in the field estate realm, we will always say what we see, and of course, always pointing out the fact and bringing information to the general public, be it good or bad. Of course, we dish it out exactly as they come. Finally, this one having to do with Davido. Okay, this is actually the same, almost the same, headline that I read through on, the Punch newspaper. But then, let me just maybe refresh it. This one says, Davido was targeted. Police confirm. One dead. Are you serious? Okay, this is actually different. Okay, those still from the same corner. So the police actually confirming that Davido was the one being targeted, as one person, was, in Pidgin there was as a by one person. You understand? Davido was a target, but then, why should the trigger be pointed at him? What wrong did Davido commit? He was just protecting the integrity of the election, having to do with his uncle, Governor Adeleke, and he made sure that, that pulled through. And not just him doing that. There are a lot of ways that he could have, raised so much of alarm, and yet what will still be by rigging the election, full square. But come on. The people stood their grounds, and it was the will of the people that Governor Adeleke was declared the winner. And I'm saying, I don't think the joy that actually erupted in me, seeing a free, credible and fair election on Saturday, okay, has not even made me to officially congratulate him on air. I will say openly, a huge congratulations, Governor Adeleke, for your re-election. Come on, it's no mean feat, if you ask me. Well, at this juncture, we may not be having more headlines again because of time, and I'm thanking you so much for staying tuned. Thanking you and your entire family and team for always making Planet Radio every bit of your day. My name is Victoria Johnson. I hand you over to my colleague Rita.
Thank you so much, Victoria Johnson. Thank you, Planet fans, for staying true to the dial. That's the much we can bring to you on the newspaper review this morning. Do well to stay tuned. Do not touch the amazing dial. The People's Parliament comes up next, where we give you ample time to share your thoughts, just as it matters to you. My name is Rita Inong. I have been your host and anchor on the program, alongside Victoria Johnson this morning. Do well to stay safe. Have a great day. Drink water. Mind your business, and you will just have a very, very amazing day. Once again, good morning to you, and enjoy the rest of your day with Planet FM, of course.